Hello and welcome to Coach Unblocked, part of the Unblocked Podcast Network. I'm Coach Fred Riley, representing the network. My show is sponsored by my publishing company, publishing my book, Bo Don't Know Me, Back Porch Publishing. Appreciate them sponsoring the show, and have a special guest tonight, a guy that most of you, including me, have probably never laid eyes on, but you know who he is through AHSFHS.org, the Bible when it comes to the history of Alabama high school football, Mr. David Parker. David, appreciate you coming on tonight.
No problem, Coach. Always glad to talk football. Just don't get me started now. We might be going all night.
Yeah, man. Well, my wife gave me about a 45-minute window. So
I got to take my grandkids for donuts at 7 o'clock. So we will have to.
I like it. I like it. Are they Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kremers?
Krispy Kreme.
Krispy Kremers.
We started taking them when they were 1 or 2 years old, and I just would hold them up, let them see the donuts, and now they're almost teenagers, and they still want me to hold them up and let them see how the donuts get the cream on top of them.
Oh yeah, those. I mean, I remember taking my children when they were small to the Krispy Kreme plant and watching them making them, and them knowing they were eating the one that just came off that assembly line. That's cool stuff. Now, ain't no doubt.
They called Grandma about 30 minutes ago and said, "Grandma, you come get us and take us to the donut."
Fantastic.
That doesn't have anything to do with football, Coach.
Well, and that's all right. It has to do with you, and you're a very interesting character to be somebody that you don't know. We've communicated over the years back and forth through email, back when we were updating some stuff for Davidson and updating some of my stuff, and over the years, and so how do you become the person that has all the information and the history of Alabama high school football at their fingertips? What is that story that led to you being that person?
Well, it's kind of weird. There's no one moment in time that I can point back to and say, okay, I decided to do this. It just sort of happened. I'm a numbers guy. I just love numbers and statistics, and I never played high school football.
Yeah.
Not a down. Never. I was a scrawny kid and a lot. So, but I always liked high school football. I went and watched it when I was in school, and I just liked it and fell in love with college football. And I don't know. I'm from Foley, and Foley has a rich tradition, and just loved to go to the games and always involved. And when I graduated, had children and family, and got interested in helping Coach Smith over there, and would go to the quarterback club meetings. And Coach Smith's just one of the greatest guys in the world. Sure. And he'd run the film as coaches do, at the quarterback club meeting, and tell you what all happened during the games. And, he'd try to hold his words back, fussing about the refereeing and the other team's coach. And I know Coach Smith, so how he is. Just one of the greatest men I have ever had contact with. Just have a world of respect for him and Keith both. And but somewhere in the mid 80s, I think I just got interested in every year I would just write down all the scores of all the teams in Mobile and Baldwin County. And so I did that for a number of years, and from high school, for the next 10 or 15 years. And I just got interested. I said, there's got to be a way we could find all the scores for Foley. So I would go down to the library and look through the microfilm at the library for the onlooker. And I ended up finding pretty much every score for Foley High School. I thought that's pretty cool. And from there, I just said, well, I got half of Fairhope done here. I got Robertsdale, and just went to Fairhope, started doing Fairhope. And I went to Central Baldwin and did Robertsdale, and went to Bay Minette, Times Journal, Baldwin County Times there, I think it is, and going through yearbooks. And eventually I was like, I've got Baldwin County pretty good. This is still in the 80s. And I said, well, what if I just go to Mobile and work on them? So I'd go over there, and everything at that time was just handwritten in notebooks, and went through all the Mobile schools and just kind of went from there. And then I guess I got this idea, and the late 90s, I guess, by then. And I wanted to put it on something to share that information with other people, but there was no platform to do that. I tried to do it about 1998, 99, 2000, along in there. And
Mhm.
I'm a computer guy, so I could
Okay.
write the scripts and get it there. But I didn't really, the technology was not quite there. You could
Right.
not make the databases work on the internet, not hardly at all. In about 2005, I got connected up with a few guys on Yahoo Chats, if you know,
Mhm. I remember that. Yeah.
old guys there. And we set up a little group, and we had probably 6 or 8 guys that were kind of interested in doing the same thing. And we started, one guy's in Anniston, so he starts working in Anniston, Gaston, and one guy's in Evergreen. He starts working on those schools in Monroe County and Connect County. And we had a guy in Birmingham, one in Montgomery. And we just started sharing things back and forth between each other. And actually, Jimmy Wickfield and Mobile got a little bit involved, and it just kind of went from there. Once I think about 2007, I said, I think I can do this on the web. I think I
Mhm.
can do it. You know, at that point, SQL databases for you tech guys, you could use those on the internet, and kind of exploded from there. Once I started the website, I had just one at a time. I actually created the website, and I thought, hey man, we'll get a few dozen people interested in this thing, and we'll do it. If you'd have told me then that it would be what it is today, I'd say you're nuts. Yeah, I would have thought of an easier name to remember for certain. But if you search high school football history, or any school or any team or any coach or anything, you'll end up on the site eventually, pretty
Right.
quickly. So,
Well, now,
but
let
go
me ask
ahead.
you this. Now, for simple PE majors like myself, so you have 100, let's say roughly 200 high school football games on a Friday night in the middle of the regular season in the state of Alabama, roughly. So how can I at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning go to your site and every score and everybody's record has already been updated? How
Well,
does that happen?
it's done by about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Well, I ain't awake at that time, but you
Well,
used to be. But how does that happen?
it was a long process. Most people don't believe this because I've done a lot of interviews, and people say, well, how many people on your staff? And I go, well, counting me, one. Yeah. So I'm it. My wife helps me a little bit, but as far as entering the scores, like I said, I write all the scripts.
Right.
So to update, let's take a team, Davidson's homepage, for instance.
Mhm.
When I if when Davidson was in the first round of the playoffs this year, there's a line that I just entered that score. I
Right.
entered the score of that first round game, and forgive me, I can't remember what it was or who they played.
Right.
Too many
Phoenix
games.
City, so they played, right?
Yeah, Central. Okay. So when I enter that score and I hit the enter button, it changes everything on Davidson's page and everything on, I mean, from the coach's record to any record they set. If it was the most points they scored in the game, if it's the most points in the season, one click of a button and it changes everything on that page, on
Gotcha.
all the pages. So it took there's 10,000 lines of script to make that happen, but it just updates everything for the coach and for that team. So what I have is I just have a sheet that tells me, or not a sheet, but a page that gives me all the games for that night. So if there are
Mhm.
200 games on September the 9th, and as I click on that game, I enter the score and who won, and then it deletes it from that list. So when
Gotcha.
I get to the end and there's no more games left,
Right.
no more games remaining. But like in the playoffs, when I entered Davidson for the first round against Central Phoenix City, it goes and updates the bracket at the same time.
Yeah.
It updates the region standings. So it's
So when you so in reality you have to plug in 100 games that night because it automatically does both teams when you plug it in.
correct.
And it updates, but it updates every bit of it, every piece of information on each team, including their overall record, region standings, all that stuff is done because you've already written the script and put all that in there. All you have to do is input the scores of the games and who won.
Everything is derived from the score of a game.
Gotcha.
In the on the entire site, unless you go to all state teams or articles or things like that, but
Right.
everything is derived. So when a coach says, well, I was a coach in 1984 and my record was 4-6, instead of you've got it as 3-7, it's supposed to be 4-6. I say, Coach, I can't help you unless you can tell me what game is wrong and the score of that game. So I must have the score of the game. So everything, if I tell you Terry Curtis has won 354 games, 355, I think, he is backed up by the score of the games.
Okay.
It's not, and I'll tell you guys a little secret because maybe somebody can help me with this. Coach Curtis emailed me a few years ago and said, I have one more win. He might have one more win than we all think he does. Because he says in 1989, either Tolmanville, which is LaFleur now, you remember
right.
Tolmanville, and he said they had to forfeit, either Tolmanville or Williamson had to forfeit a game to Shaw, which he was at Shaw at that time. And so I said, well, Coach, I'll go look and see, but I can't find anything about it. So I told him, I said, if you can, I can't do anything without verification.
Sure.
Even though he's telling me this, I still need to know which team forfeited the game. But
right.
It could have happened months later. I don't
right.
know when it was in the paper. Sometimes back then, it might be 2 months later.
Sure.
Before that. So anyway, if anybody wants to help Coach Curtis get another victory, somebody point me in the direction of finding which team it was and what happened there so we can get
right.
that square.
Right.
But it was fun in the beginning because, some of the great coaches, Glenn Daniel, and we go back to Walden Tucker is a good example. Walden Tucker was getting close to the 300 and passing Glenn Daniel. Well, Glenn Daniel, I went back and found every score of every game where he was from Pine Hill to Laverne. And then when Walden Tucker got close to his record, he contacted me and said, because I couldn't even verify what years he was at what school. I know he was at Demopolis Academy when it opened in the early 70s and in Gordo. And Demopolis Academy was really tough to get all the scores for, but he put me up with his nephew. And between he and I, we tracked down every score of every game. So, it's kind of nice to know that I'm not taking the new magazines or newspapers telling me that Glenn Daniel had 302 wins. And there were things out there published that were close to the numbers I had, but they weren't exact. Well, I just say I can back mine up with the score of the games, which I think makes it impeccable. And
sure.
I mean, somebody wants to argue with me every week, but I just say, prove me wrong. I'm not
and I know when it became online 08, 09, right along in there, when I became aware of it and we became aware of it. I mean, we used and we realized how accurate it was. It was just so easy to go to your site and plan out your season on who you were going to scout and where you were going to go, because it was just right there. And then you could go like you've done. You could say you go to our page, but then you can click on any of our opponents and it takes you directly to their page. And how easy it was to just manage all that, so easy, so quickly that we used it. It helped us. I mean, it's great for historians, but it helped us just in terms of time management in a lot of ways. To be able to pull that, you're getting ready to go to the playoffs, to go right to somebody's site and see or you're already thinking, okay, we're probably going to play so-and-so in the first round. You can go to your page, see who their opponents are, and go on and start trying to get film from them. And I mean, it helped us many, many times.
I'll tell you a couple of things about that. One is about that time, probably 2008 or 9, I think I took a little different angle in that, we don't promote individual players so much because I think football is a team sport. Of course, I have 2 sons that are coaches. And if you listen to Coach's podcast last week, that was my son.
Right.
So, and you didn't know that until after the fact, because I happened to talk to Chris that day and he said, I was on Coach Riley's podcast. And I said, what? I said, he's already asked me. I was supposed to be on last week. So, but, I sent out some forums to a lot of coaches. I wanted to profile coaches. It's one thing we do is I really believe strongly that coaches are an important part of the youth, the future of our country as far as youth and football and all the sports really. But I wanted to do little profiles on all the coaches, and I sent out these little questionnaires, and you were one of the first ones to respond. Here's what I want to say about that is there's a coalition between my connection with head coaches and I don't want to sound weird, but the greatest head coaches and the best head coaches are more quickly to respond to me than guys who don't run a great program. I don't know how would I explain that, Coach?
Yeah, well,
but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're saying that the coaches that are the most thorough,
you're accessible,
are going to be accessible. They're going to do everything they can to promote their program, promote their school, and not have anything to hide. Get it out there, and
right.
It's in everybody's best interest to.
They're in that community and they want to promote not themselves but their program and their players and their, But that really shocked is that one thing I don't like aggravating coaches.
Sure.
I feel like you guys have, not necessarily you anymore, but when you were coaching, and my sons were coaches, so I know what their life is like. I've seen them put in 100 hours a week, week after week after week, and I don't want to be calling some coach asking them a stupid question about something that, so I respect coaches that give me the time and help me with what we're doing because I want to be accurate. If I have a question, it's like about a game is what was the actual score? Because I'm getting 3 different scores here. And so I really appreciate the coaches that help it. At this point, I mean, I think I could reach out to any coach in the state almost, and they're just quickly to respond. In the beginning, it wasn't that way. It was, you have to earn that respect, I think. And I'm not bragging on what I did. It's everybody. There were just 100 people that have helped over the years.
Well, certainly when you build trust over time and and accuracy and it just, it's just, within the last 15 years, it's become just part of the fabric of high school football in the state of Alabama. I mean, everybody uses that site for something. It may just be just for entertainment. I mean, there's just some great reading on there to go back and look at, my high school coach, Barry Halliday, go back and look at his profile. And,
I'm not a very good writer now.
And,
I do not claim to be a writer at all. I'm probably in the bottom 10%. My vocabulary is limited, but I think it's the content more than the quality of the writing. I mean, those got Ben Thomas and them can make me look bad real fast, but I think it's the content. It's letting people know. And I tell people when they get on the site initially and they say, man, this is great. I just found it. And I say, be careful now because you're liable to get on there and 8 hours later, you're looking up, oh man, it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah,
get going one path and you just can't get back to where you started.
Very, very addictive. No question.
That's on purpose. I put all those links and make them easy to click around so you get lost.
Yeah, you could tell very quickly there was a method to the madness. I mean, I wasn't sure how you had done it, but no question.
Well, I just want people to explore. I don't want, it's just better if you just, I believe in life is that way. We do a lot of traveling and we talk about this all the time with my wife. It's some of the best things we've done were not planned. Some of
Sure.
the best things we've seen, we just happened like, wow, there's something, let's go see that.
Mhm.
And it's like, it's the greatest thing ever because you didn't anticipate it. So if you go on the site and you start looking at a team, just go look at the best coaches and read some of the profiles and see where
Right.
that leads you. Where did these guys come from? Where did they start from? That always intrigued me is, you see Paul Benefield and Steve Smith and all these guys and Terry Curtis, of course. Of course, Terry I knew because not personally, but I mean, he's in the Mobile area, so I've
Sure.
known him since he was at Shaw pretty much. And but a lot of these coaches, you just don't know anything about them until you go research. And I love to, we got Billy Adams. We do a podcast, of course, and I'm not promoting that, but Billy Adams at Locust Fork, we went trying to find something on him. We couldn't find anything. I mean, this guy just fell from the sky, and it was so. Yes, we were talking about on the podcast and said, if anybody can help us, where did he come from? We just don't know. There's
Mhm.
nothing on the internet. So the PA announcer reached out to me, sent me an email, sent me a little background on the guy. And he had been an assistant coach there for 22 years before he got a head coaching job. And, Locust Forks, of course, a great team this year, have a really good year, or did. But, that's the kind of things I enjoy is people want to know, this is Locust Fork was 12-0 and Billy
Sure.
Adams. But who is he? Where did he
Right.
come from? He was that assistant coach there for 22 years. And so we
And
just try to help people out.
Well, and again, we even really barely even touched upon we talked about the coaches' profiles, but the fact that you can click on practically anybody who's ever been a head coach in this state and find their record at each individual school, overall, their out-of-state record. I mean, that had to be more difficult than doing the teams. I mean,
Yeah, the coaches helped me with that a lot. I know, like Jamie Mitchell and at Hillcrest, and then Ed Rigby at Laverne, and Coach Josh Floyd at Hewitt Trustfield.
Trustful, right?
Those are just three that recently helped me. I mean, they contacted me. I didn't even. Ed Rigby, of course, has been in Alabama for a number of years. I didn't even know he coached out of state.
Right.
I knew Jamie Mitchell did, but I couldn't. If I don't know a state, I don't know where to go look.
Right.
And
Right. So I think Josh came from Arkansas, I believe. Isn't that correct, Floyd?
Yeah, Josh. Josh was
Malzahn disciple.
Yeah.
Right.
We went through that a few weeks ago. He was at Shiloh Christian in Little Rock, and Gus was the coach there from 1996 to 2000, and then Josh. What did I say? Gus was there from 96 to 2000, and Josh came in 2002. Gus won 2 state championships, and I believe Josh won 3. Am I saying his name? He's got those 2 kids that play in it.
Yeah.
Josh Floyd, right?
Josh Floyd, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Peyton Floyd and
I don't know his children's name, but I do know his
Peyton,
name.
and I don't know. I have to remember too many names.
Because we were I spoke at Arkansas's coaches clinic in March of 2006 when Gus was the offensive coordinator there, and they had signed London Crawford, and to go there, and so they brought me in to speak that year, and I learned the difficulty of getting to Fayetteville, Arkansas via plane.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to get there, period. But it
I
was
didn't know you could.
That last plane is a lot smaller than the first one. Let's just say it that way. I mean, the ground looks a lot closer. But so I got to know them a little bit and spend some time over there during that time. So it's an amazing profession. you know, the paths that you cross, you probably saw, we spent our weekend and for Thanksgiving in little old Uri and up in
Oh yeah.
Monroe County. And it is amazing how many football coaches came through Frisco City, Monroeville, through that stretch, Lefty Anderson, those kind of guys that can wiggle their way down for, bigger opportunities, $100 more a year back in the day,
Right.
whatever it was they're making that impacted Mobile and impacted Baldwin County that came from that little part of, Tim Carter is originally from Frisco City. And
Really.
up in
That
that
place
part of,
just a dot on the
oh
map.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Very
I don't,
familiar.
I mean, Uri, I can't think
WC
of,
Majors. That WC Majors was from up
right.
that way. If
All
you know
those
who that
guys
is.
from up in that part of the woods. That's correct.
One of the guys that helped us initially with the website actually lives in Excel.
Okay.
He works for the Evergreen newspaper there, Lee Peacock,
Okay.
and good friend. He was there from day one. He was on the Yahoo chats with us.
Wow.
Still with us.
Wow. That's fantastic. And even now, I mean, we when they start getting in the middle of the season and me and Susan, we of course we follow high school football, go to a game here and there, but we follow Ben on AL.com on Friday night and keep up with the
Oh, yeah.
scores or keep up with all of the guys, Randy Kennedy, all Josh Bean, all of them, their Twitter accounts as they're posting scores. And but then you get sort of into it, and we'll be sitting out on the front porch or the back porch on Saturday morning, and Susan say, "Well, who's it look like it's going to make? Who does it look like it's going to make the playoffs?" And I said, "Well, hang on, we'll just go to your site and look find the region standings." And right now, if they played now, 7A Region 1 would play. This would be playing against 7A Region 2. Well, who they got left to play? Well, here's who they, and it's just so right there at your fingertips and so much fun. And that goes on at our house, every Saturday as we just look at what happened statewide and how it impacted the grand scheme of things. And now I know that if I get up and go to the bathroom at 1:30 in the morning, I can actually go to the site and you'll have already have it updated. So that's a good thing to know.
I don't go to sleep. I don't go to bed till Ben gives me that last score.
That's great.
And here's the thing about it is, I don't trust many things. I learned many years ago is where I get the scores from. And I have, of course, connected a lot through Twitter now where I follow the team pages.
Right.
So I see if Fife or whatever team, if they have a page, they'll post the scores for me, which helps. But, Ben's the man.
Oh, yeah.
I don't enter the scores, and I always kind of double check my stuff against what they do because they're very accurate. Accuracy counts because if I get a score wrong, oh my goodness, do I hear about it?
Oh yeah,
Real quickly.
I'm sure. We've been blessed down here with good media people. All the way through. I mean, in Stuart Babington back in the day when I was at Robertsdale, who handled the ball and
Tommy Hicks.
Tommy Hicks, Josh Bean, Mike Herndon,
Jimmy Wickfield.
Oh yeah, all guys that didn't have agendas. They didn't call people out. They just gave you the news, and they tried to cast. If you got beat 56-3, they tried to find a way to cast the team with 3 in a positive light, some way, shape, or form, because they always remember those are kids.
Yeah,
and those coaches have families, and they always were so gracious in how they handled things.
Absolutely, I miss the days of picking up the newspaper. I couldn't wait for Saturday morning to pick up the newspaper and read the stories about all the teams because you wouldn't know that you wouldn't know until you got up Saturday morning and read the newspaper, Davidson won or Murphy or whoever.
Oh yeah.
And it was great. And they could tell the story, and I miss those days. I miss those so much because now there's so much misinformation and so much drama. where people just dramatize some big event like, this Thursday, breaking news, big announcement. And you get to Thursday and it's like nothing. You hear some little tidbit like, well, I already knew that 3 weeks ago.
Well, I
Some
tell you
coach is retiring.
oh yeah,
If a coach is quitting or retiring, generally I'll know about it pretty quickly.
right, right. Well, I know
I have
I've
some
got
pretty good sources.
right, and I've got a few things hanging around here, and all of them were, just I mean, there's nothing quite like getting that if you were a Friday night coach or a Friday night player and going out and getting the newspaper on Saturday morning and getting to the sports page and your team's picture is on the front page of the sports from the night before. And
That's right. Those big time.
going in and getting scissors and cutting that sucker out and taking it to Camellia Trophy or wherever and getting it framed. And
Coach, I'm gonna tell you a secret. If you need any old newspapers, some old games, let me know.
fantastic.
I have every preseason football edition that the Mobile Press printed from 1981
Wow.
back to today. When we moved recently, and I had to downsize, so I got rid of about half my newspaper stack, but I had hundreds and hundreds of newspapers from Saturday morning. And I know it's stupid to say, but I would just stuff them in boxes and put them under the bed somewhere. But I like looking back through those 1983 season,
Oh yeah, I mean,
preseason.
awesome stuff. I mean, I mean, all my scrapbooks that that I have from back when I played that parents kept for you and cut the articles out and put them inside the thing and press them down and make sure they were so and
My wife
oh
did
yeah,
that for our boys. You
you
have to
know
do
and
that.
and you don't. I very seldom ever go back and look at it, but I do know this: there's going to come a time my kids are going to appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a time they're going to say, "Holy cow!" I forgot Dad did this. It's good
Oh,
stuff.
I probably have probably one person a week average contact me and say, my grandfather played on the 1956 Carver team or some, wherever.
Mhm.
And do you have any more information on him? Or, can you tell me anything? Of course, I
Sure.
can't do much other than say whether they were all state or they weren't or this or played in an all-star game. But yeah, a lot of people like to know about their grandparents or parents or
Oh yeah. Well, when I retired from Davidson, they had at the end of the year they have a retirement luncheon and somebody gets up and introduces you and goes through whatever they're going to say about you and Mr. Copeland had retired the same time I did, so
yeah.
he came back to introduce me at the end of the year and he read verbatim your profile that you had on me. he
But
literally
you
read it verbatim. It was
you
great.
actually wrote that because I sent the questionnaire and you pretty
Right,
much
right.
filled it out and I use it word for word.
Well, that's what he read,
Yeah.
which
And
was actually, and he was like, I didn't realize Coach Riley was on the Super 11 football team in high school. There's things you just you don't even you have no idea about people that you start taking a little bit of deeper look at them.
right,
So
right.
it was pretty
Another
good.
another coach, of course, Coach Lazenby who was at Bayside now at Bayshore, he did the same thing. He's been in contact with me the whole, through all the years, talked to him a few times, usually have some contact with him every year and looking forward to what he can do over there at Bayshore next year. They're starting a team. So,
Right.
but like I said, you know, these guys that won 100, 200 games and upwards, just so accessible. And I just appreciate that, and the fans, it helps. They don't know how much that does. Like you said, that I can write their profile in your words. You
Right.
told me what to say. It wasn't, I didn't make that up.
Right.
Who
Exactly.
influenced you and what you did before you were coaching. We know your record. That's easy to find. you
Right.
know, that you were at Robertsdale and Coffee. Am I right?
That's right.
And for 1 year. And then how did you go to Coffee?
You know, when I got out of college coaching, I sort of ran into a dead end college coaching wise, like a lot of guys do, and and decided to be a high school coach. And I went to Lenoir City, Tennessee, because I wasn't sure I was committed to being a high school coach at the time, and I didn't want to come to Alabama, come home, and bounce and jump back into college coaching and sort of have a bad reputation amongst administrators in the state if I did something like that. So I'll give high school coaching a shot at Lenoir City, and we had 2 really good years there. And Coffee, of course, I played at the University of North Alabama, and the Coffee High School sat on the University of North Alabama. UNA's football stadium sits on Coffee's campus, which is now Florence
We
High
should give a
School.
little we should give a little history here, and I'll help you with that. Because these young kids won't know what coffee. They're like Coffee.
Right. Coffee High
Coffee
School
and
and Bradshaw
Bradshaw.
High School, with the 2 high schools there. And
Right.
Steve Mask was the head coach at Bradshaw when I was the
Right.
head coach at Coffee. Freedom of choice school system. Coming out of middle
Right.
school, you could go to whichever school you wanted to go to. So you got to recruit park leagues. You got to, I mean, it was, oh my gosh, it was unbelievable the things that were going. It didn't matter where you lived, there were no school zones in the city limits.
Right.
And then but I was hired there by Buddy Anderson.
Oh, really?
Not Buddy Anderson. I'm sorry,
No.
Buddy Moore. Wrong Buddy.
Okay.
General Moore. When I played at North Alabama and finished and got my degree at UNA in PE, I did my student teaching for Buddy Moore, who was the head coach at Coffee at the time, and was big time in the National Guard. And so by that time, 12 years later, or actually it was only about 10 years later, he calls me and offers me the job. Don Creasy had left and gone to Mountain Brook, and from Coffee, and Coach Moore offers me the job. But then a year later, Guy Hunt names him the adjutant general in the National Guard, the job he's been working for his entire life. So he leaves. We have a total change in administration, total change in everything. We didn't win a whole lot of games, and the next guy fired me, and which is how I ended up at Robertsdale. And but for me, going to Coffee was, almost like getting to coach. I got to coach on the same field I played on, so in college. So in a lot of ways, it was like going.
Coffee as a rule, Coffee had some good football program.
It was just at that time Bradshaw had really sort of taken over, and Coffee had become one of those smallest schools in a classification, and barely staying in there long enough that you still had to play Decatur and people like that. And and I've said many years, a lot of coaches do just a good enough job in some really tough situations to keep games close enough that when they lose, it's their fault. If you'd have just called this at this time, you'd have won that game. The reality is they probably should have beat you 35-0. And and you found a way by hook or crook to hang in there with them. And
I don't judge coaches. I think I know coaches. I'd put myself up there with about anybody in the state, I guess, but I don't judge coaches on wins and losses.
Sure.
I judge coaches on, and we've talked about this in different groups, but I have a Mount Rushmore of coaches in the state of Alabama of all time, and I promise you they would not match anyone else's list because it's how a coach did in a certain situation.
Right.
There are programs that you can win at, and there are 50 coaches that win in that situation in the state. Right. And there's some programs that there are only 2 or 3 that are going to put together winning programs consistently at that school. So I don't look at just, did you win 200 games or 300 games or whatever it be, or 100 for that matter.
Sure.
It's how did you perform? How did you build a program from scratch? And how did you sustain that success over a span of years?
Right.
So,
and every place is, every coach's not the right fit for every school. I mean, it's just, you know,
No,
so you know, you've got to be, you know, I
I'm
was
a firm
always,
believer.
you know,
Yeah,
I was always better in blue collar, you know, lower middle class, you know, tough guys, tough that grew up tough and you know, because that's how
yeah,
I was raised and where I came from, and I related to them a lot better. And my goofy stories that I would tell, they could relate to them. You know,
right.
where you know you've been in another setting, I could have told those stories and they would have just looked at me.
But
Uh,
I don't want to defend any school, any program, any coach or anything, but you don't take the assistant coach who was assistant coach at Mountain Brook or Vestavia Hills for 13 years and put him in the position you were in Robertsdale.
right, right,
It's not going to work. You know, it's just not, or Alma Bryant, you know,
right.
it's just not going to work because the culture is different. The kids are different. The parents are different. Just dealing with the parents, you
Sure,
know, is always a
no
tough
question,
thing. And
no question.
you have to be able to relate to them. You know, a good example is Todd Watson when he came from, people say, well, he came from Hoover to Foley. No, Todd came from Alba
Right,
to Hoover to Foley. Todd
right,
knew what Foley needed, and Todd was a perfect fit for Foley at a
right,
perfect time, in my opinion. He
right,
could relate. He, you know, he knew the kids, he understood, and he won.
right. And he was a great fit. And you
Oh, he
know
was.
the boy, we have some fantastic football games when Todd was there, and
Any overtime games in the playoffs, coach?
back to back years, back to back years. You're dang right. You
I was
know,
there.
I mean,
Don't
holy
remind me.
cow! I mean, what you know, and you know, and it's funny the they uh, were certainly in '09. '09 they should have beaten us. '09 was not it wasn't as crazy as the Alabama Auburn game Saturday, but
Yeah.
it still was. I mean, you know, we're 4th and goal in overtime on the 10 and throw a touchdown pass on 4th and goal and then go for 2 and go for the win and make it and win the game. And you know, you know, and I mean, and literally the pass in the corner of the end zone was. I mean, if they'd have called it out of bounds, you couldn't have argued. It was that close.
I
You
can't say I
know?
remember that exact play, but I just remember there being some close games right in that
Oh
time.
gosh, you know, overtime, but overtime both years. And of course, you know, we coached the semi-pro team for 5 years, and Darius Powell was our quarterback in the
Oh yeah,
semi-pro team,
sure.
and I gig him about that every now and then, just to remind him. But
Great athlete.
well, he's a great competitor, great leader.
Yeah.
You know, he bought our franchise from us. We put it up for sale, and he
Yeah.
bought it,
I heard you talk.
and is going to run it over
Yeah.
in the Foley area somewhere. And
That's another thing about coaches. You know, one of the standards I have as far as judging, I guess I judge coaches maybe way more than I should, but you know, my first thought process is win the games you're supposed to win.
right,
You know, you go into a season and you know, you can kind of understand
sure,
I should win these games. These teams are not as good as we are. We will win these games. And you know, I looked at Todd's record at Foley, and I hate to brag on Foley and talk about Foley so much, but sorry, guys. Todd won the games he was supposed to win.
sure,
Did he win every game? Absolutely not. You know, Foley struggled against Daphne and some of the Mobile teams at certain times, but if you look at, he beat all the teams he was supposed to beat. And that's, you know,
right,
that's all you can ask for a coach. I don't expect Todd to go to Foley and go 15-0 and win 6 state championships.
right. Well,
You know,
and we always talked about. I mean, we would break it down at the beginning of every season, and you know when I've talked about that exact thing in coaches clinics. Look, at the end of the day, you got X amount of games that you're supposed to win. You got X amount of games that you're supposed to lose, and you got 2 or 3 or maybe 4 50-50 games.
right.
And the guys that end up in the playoffs, winning 7 or 8 games every year, win the ones they're supposed to win, lose the ones they're supposed to lose, but they win 3 of the 4 50-50s
You
or
got it,
2
coach.
of the 3 50-50s, and they end up 8-2.
But the important thing is you must win the games you're supposed to win.
Oh yeah, and that's what drove me crazy at Robertsdale was we would beat Daphne and then lose to Atmore. I just lose your mind. How can we play so good this week and so bad this week? And oh my goodness.
I'm sorry, Coach, but I don't feel sorry for you. You know, that was our rival, and I didn't feel sorry for anything to do with Robertsdale. No offense to Robertsdale or any of their people. I'm sure they're great people, but you know, that was a bitter rival for me.
Oh, cool. No question.
My biggest fear in life was when my oldest son went off to Alabama, graduated. My biggest fear was he was going to come back to Baldwin County somewhere that wasn't Foley. I steered him away. I said, no, don't, you can't come back to any of these rival schools. I'd have a hard time going over there and sitting in the stands.
Well, and I'll tell you in our 5 years of semi-pro football, the best, the hardest workers, the best teammates, the guys who came to every practice and tried to be a part of something bigger than themselves were the Foley kids. They were the best ones out of all the ones that we had. And we had guys from all around, but we had a core group of kids out of Foley that would always sort of hold things together. Semi-pro is not real easy to hold together. There's a lot of, it is a lot of variables and moving parts and
they're not driving up in Rolls Royces with diamonds.
No, well, me and Al Ernest used to say this is fluid. Just remember, this is fluid because it would change daily, and we'd laugh about that all the time. But hey, I know you got to take somebody to Krispy Kreme. Here in about 10 minutes.
I've done kept you way over our 20-minute limit.
You got to go to Krispy Kreme, and if I don't go in there and start grilling some sausage or something in a couple minutes, I'm gonna get a knot on my head.
I know.
Look, thank you
so much. I told you we
could
talk all night.
Oh yeah, we could keep going forever. Thank you so much. Thanks for the impact you've had on the Riley family's life for the last 15 years, and how much we've enjoyed it and will continue to enjoy it. God bless you. We appreciate you so much, and thanks for taking the time to come on.
Absolutely, Coach. Keep in touch now. If I do something wrong, let me know.
Yes, sir. All right. You'll be waiting a long time for that phone call, I'm sure.
You get back in coaching now. I need to update your profile, so let me know.
It'll affect my handicap too much on the golf course if I did that. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. Bye.